name is Pieter du Toit. I'm Assistant Editor overseeing investigations at News 24. And on Wednesday, the 29th of October, we published a visual investigation into the death of Mpho Mafole. He is an auditor at the Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Municipality. He was killed on the 30th of June after a chase by Izinkabi, two hitmen, two assassins, who took him out late afternoon, early evening in Ekurhuleni after he identified irregularities with tenders to the tune of 1.8 billion rand. And I'm privileged to be joined by my friends and colleagues, Sikonathi, Mantshantsha, and Wicks, who led this investigations for us. Gentlemen, it's good sitting around a table to be able to talk about Mpho Mafole. It was a big day for us, I think, when we published this story. It's something that we've been working on for a while. Jeff, you lived and breathed Babita Diokaran for so long. But Sikonathi, I want to ask and start with you. When we became aware of Mpho Mafole's death, the similarities between his death, the circumstances surrounding his death, and that of Babita was quite striking. Give our viewers some insight into how we came across the story and how we thought about it in the beginning.
The immediate thing, Peter, when such a tragic thing occurs, as happened to Paul Mafo, you wonder why. Who would have wanted him dead? And given his position, you want to know what he was working on, and therefore you make your inquiries and you pay close attention to the court process, to the police investigation, and sometimes you'll be lucky and someone who knows something may respond to your inquiries, and that's how we came to it.
But I think when we started discussing Mafole in the beginning, two things for me immediately stood out, which I thought, there must be something more to this. One, the violent nature of his death. I mean, how many shots were pumped through his body?
He was shot 9 times.
So, I mean, the purpose was to take him out, and then obviously his position as an auditor. What was your initial thoughts? I mean, just like you thought, Babita, it wasn't a run-of-the-mill violent crime, but what were your thoughts when you saw who he was, what he did, what his job was, and especially at that municipality on the East Rand?
It's always the first telltale signs. Nothing gets taken from his car, which immediately tells you it was not a robbery, it was not a hijacking, it was just a hit. Again, you want to know what the hell for. And given the politics and the corruption in our local government, particularly given that same municipality has had 2 auditors now, shot, one of them unfortunately killed in 2023, we're like, oh God, there's another one. So what the hell is going on there? Let's go find out what happened. Why was Mpho shot? When you have that question, you just have to go around and search and talk to people, and that's what we thought. We were like, oh, more corruption, obviously. Corruption in the municipal council.
Before we delve into the weeds of the investigation itself, Jeff, how did this pique your interest? I mean, Ekurhuleni featured quite large in your investigation when it started, didn't it? I mean, that municipality is an entity that I think deserves some serious scrutiny, isn't it?
No, certainly. I mean, I think when we look at what we've been working on for the past couple of years, many lines trace back to that municipality. I mean, Tembisa Hospital is set in that municipality. We had the key extractors who were operating in that facility who are from Ekurhuleni. And then you have to view that against the backdrop of, well, this is the 3rd attack on an auditor in the same municipality. So that it's not a leap to say that there's something definitely wrong there. And it's been, furthermore, you've got issues that trace back to Ekurhuleni with Kat Matlala, and to the fact that he was able to inveigle his way into a controlling position in the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Force. So it was definitely worthy of our attention. And then also, something that I'm always mindful of straying away from when we do these investigations, because they often focus on audit reports and very dense documents. But Mpho Mafole was a human being ultimately, and he was engaged to be wed. He'd only been in that job for 3 months when he was gunned down, and his fiancée has been left to pick up the pieces, and his family's been ripped apart. So I think what our story today does, in a way, is really explain the visceral nature and the human tragedy behind a man who was hunted, literally hunted and eliminated.
We'll take as read that viewers have both read our previous reporting on this matter and have followed our reporting on Wednesday. seen all the videos, followed the stories. In the story, there's a line where Sikonathi and Jeff writes that Mpho Mafole made a last call to his fiancée, which she never picked up, Sikonathi.
Yes, there was, at that moment where he was actually shot and killed, he was on his mobile phone. A bullet hit through the phone and went through.
So he was actually on the phone trying to call.
He was actually on the phone, and the call went, and the fiancée couldn't pick up. By the time she phoned back, it was too late. The phone didn't ring, and Mpho was by then dead, minutes dead. As Jeff has just pointed out, the guy was about to get married in about 2 months from now, in December 2025. He paid lobola for his fiancée in December 2024. So this was a young man full of life and looking forward to starting a family.
Give us some more insight into who Mpho Mafole was. He used to work at the Auditor General. He stayed with his parents ahead of his wedding to his fiancée. His fiancée is also a professional individual in her own right. So give us some insight into what we know about what type of person Mpho was.
Peter, we definitely are going to say very little about his fiancée, except that the man was engaged to be married, had already paid lobola, was going to get married this coming December. And this is, of course, a beautiful professional woman who now has to pick up the pieces. Mpho was the only child of his now retired teacher parents. Mother and father were both teachers, and now they are retired in their 60s. Yeah. They've lost their only child, who had his own place but moved back home. I don't know why, moved back home to live with his parents. And when his car crashed 3 or 4 years ago, a guy of that seniority, the chief auditor, just drove around in his mother's small Toyota Yaris for the last 2 to 3 years. No worries whatsoever, and until, of course, he met his untimely death. He worked for the Auditor General for 15 years and was part of the teams that audited that municipality. So he knew the municipality quite well, and he joined them. 3 months later, he was murdered. Exactly on the 90th day of him employed in that municipality.
Do we know why he moved from the AG's office to Ekurhuleni?
He told his parents that he had been working at the Auditor General for 15 years and had pretty much grown as much as he could there. And he said he told his dad that he was joining to help improve service delivery at the municipality. His home is within the boundaries of that municipality. They originally come from Tembisa, and they live now in the suburb. Literally, when you are at Mpho's home, you can see the township of Tembisa across, where the bulk of the Mafole family live. And when the suspect that's now been arrested appears in court, there's always a lot of Tembisa people coming to support the family there. So they still very much have their roots and connections with Tembisa.
You've got contact with the family. This hit the family quite hard, didn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the first time I visited them, the mother could not even say hello, could not even. This was 3 weeks after the murder, and this was before any suspect was arrested. The mother could not hold a conversation together. She just was unable to cope and talk to anyone. Of course, with time, they will heal with time, but it's quite. It's what, 3 months now since his death.
Right, let's get into it. Jeff, he was, we've established, he was a young guy, an auditor, worked for the AG, moved to Ekurhuleni to try and help improve service delivery, identified seeming wrongdoing. Talk us through the 1.8 billion rand tender for chemical toilets. That's a hell of a lot of money. And why does Ekurhuleni need so much chemical toilets in and around the municipal area, and why spend so much money on chemical toilets?
It's a fairly easy answer, and it's a service delivery failure, and it's opportunity born of crisis. And this is a recurring tender that is it runs for 4 years, and then it's awarded once again. And It's born out of the need for sanitation services in townships and informal settlements where there are no toilets or infrastructure to support that. So it's lucrative because it is valued just shy of 2 billion rand, and it's awarded to a panel of companies who then have to provide chemical toilets and then maintain it.
But it's 1.8 billion rand. I mean, surely that 1.8 billion rand can be used over time, Sikonathi, to improve service delivery and improve infrastructure.
Exactly. I wanted to add that, Jeff, this is like many instances of corruption. They see there's a crisis that needs to be sorted out, and then the very people that are actually must be sorting this out, the municipality, stopping people from invading land and stuff, they see a business opportunity in there, in that if you have a squatter camp popping up, you have to supply them with sanitation services, and then they divide up the tenders amongst themselves. I'm talking about the people that work in the municipality, be they the management or the councillors. So this and water tanks and other waste collection becomes a serious revenue opportunity for such a big metropolitan municipality with about 2 million people to the east of Gauteng. So it's not just an opportunity born of crisis. It's now an opportunity that's being exploited by the very people that should actually be preventing these squatter camps mushrooming.
And this is what Mpho saw, Jeff. I mean, this is what Mpho saw. This is what Pieter du Toit saw.
That's exactly it. I mean, the crisis is almost seeded. And what we had to look at was, what was he doing in the days before his murder? And very early on, we were able to establish that he was looking at this tender and conducting a probity audit. But there were a couple of red flags that popped up in the information that came to us. The first was that doing a probity audit like this is a significant task. He was given days to perform this probity audit. So there was no way the scope of it could encompass everything he needed to look at, and he was being rushed. Secondly, this took place at the end of the financial year, a frenetic time. So the fact that he even embarked on this process was strange. And then his findings were key. He looked at a very small sample of bidders, and he found that there were irregularities in the way some of these bidders were disqualified.
Just to interrupt you, sorry, even though it was under enormous pressure, end of the financial year, limited scope, even then, he did find cause for concern.
Even in the small sample that he looked at, he found irregularities. And those irregularities are important because they open the city up to legal challenge, and they open up to potentially further service delivery failures when this tender is challenged in court. And he made these plain in a report. What happened next is the key, because within 24 hours, his direct reporting line, Philip Ekurhuleni, altered the findings of his report, and altered them in many ways. Firstly was to sanitize it and say there are no issues with this tender. And secondly, he set out that Mpho had examined all of the winning bidders. That was a complete lie. He'd looked at none of the winning bidders. So those are the issues that we have now begun to scrape at the surface of. And what we published today is really a step-by-step chronicle of Mpho Mafole's last day, plotted nearly down to the second.
Jeff, just give our viewers insight into the similarities between what Pieter du Toit found, what Mpho Mafole found, and what happened immediately after that within the chain of command in both institutions. One, the Gauteng Department of Health, the other one, the Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Municipality.
Before you do, Jeff, we need to state on the record that one, Philip Ekurhuleni is not a suspect in the murder case, and we have not made that accusation at all. We just need to record that Philip Ekurhuleni worked with Mpho on the audit. There's at least one person that's been arrested for the assassination, but the police have not at all, at least as far as we know, thrown in Ekurhuleni into this.
But Mr. Ekurhuleni will have to answer some questions, and we understand that an institution that he belongs to, which governs municipal auditors, have started asking questions.
Definitely.
Jeff, what are the similarities between what happened at the Gauteng Department of Health and the Metropolitan Municipality in Ekurhuleni?
So it's striking, even though that they're years apart. So Pieter du Toit finds irregularities in Mpiso Hospital's payment patterns.
Draws up a report.
Files a report. Within 19 days, she's murdered. Mpho Mafole draws up a report. Within days, he's murdered.
What happens to the content of both the reports?
From what we can tell, and certainly in Pieter du Toit's case, that report was buried, suppressed, and payments that she had frozen were released. It remains to be seen exactly what came of Mpho Mafole's findings, because from what we can tell, this tender was awarded. And now we need to take a retrospective view and try and understand the role of each of the people in the management suite at Ekurhuleni, how they altered the report and contributed to the awarding of that contract.
After Mafole submitted the report and it was sanitized and amended with all those irregularities that were put in there by Philip Rakwale, the tenders were awarded. On the day of his funeral, his family told me that they saw these mobile toilets being transported, being delivered to where they need to be.
On the day of the funeral?
On the day of the funeral, they saw this. This is obviously because June 30 is the end of the financial year for any municipality. So they were now in July during the funeral, and the chemical toilets were being delivered by the 15 companies that had been awarded, some of which Mpho said should not have been awarded.
Gentlemen, in closing, and from both of you, this is not the first incident of a whistleblower, auditor, lawyer, someone trying to roll back the ravages of corruption and malfeasance and fraud in the public environment being taken out, being murdered, being killed in a violent way. How big of a problem is it, Sikonathi, and how do we counter it, Jeff?
It certainly is a big problem. While we were...
it's a bigger problem
than people think. It's a bigger problem than people think, because in South Africa about 80 people are murdered every day, and it's just another murder until you go down and see who was this, what was their job. While Jeff and I and our colleagues were filming and working on this story, we came across a gentleman who outside of his yard in Kempton Park, right next to the school where one of the cameras picked up Mpho Mafole. He saw us busy filming. He thought we were looking at his house and his yard. He came and asked, "Who are you guys? What are you doing here?" When we told him what we were doing, he said, "God, my wife was killed in exactly the same way." And his wife worked for the Gauteng Human Settlements Department at the head office, and she happened to be the third employee murdered between 2019 and 2022. So she was killed in February 2022. The gentleman said this coming Feb will be 4 years.
You just stumbled across another victim.
We just stumbled across a victim while we were tracing the last steps of Mpho Mafole, another victim who lived in that municipality.
Before I come to you, Jeff, Sikonathi, what is the effect of people in strategic positions like Mpho Mafole being assassinated? What's the impact on accountability, on oversight, and on proper governance in an organization like
Ekurhuleni? It has to send a chilling effect and certainly a very intimidating effect. Anyone that works in that municipality now knows at least 2 auditors have been murdered for their work on this. And of course, definitely Mpho has worked on many other things which we may or may not uncover. Anyone that does not perform as the tenderpreneurs want knows exactly what the message is. And of course, their managers, people at the top, like Philip Rakwale and the city managers can actually say, listen, we don't want to get into trouble. Just pay that, like the Macho person did in the case of Papita. I don't want to deal with politicians. I don't want to deal with tenderpreneurs. So it's a chilling message. It's a chilling effect. It's a very violent one. No one wants to be subjected to that on a daily basis. But does anyone now want to work in these kinds of environments?
Jeff, my initial question was how do we change it? How do we stop this? But while we're sitting here, the Madlanga Commission is conducting its affairs. The same is happening in the ad hoc committee in Parliament, where where South Africans have a front row seat to the civil war that the police is engaged in. I mean, what hope can the Mafole family have for these murders to be properly investigated and the brains behind this assassination being identified, prosecuted, and sent to jail?
I think what we're seeing at the Madlanga Commission and at Parliament is a daily horror show of dysfunction. You know, it's staggering for me to sit and watch, and now the dysfunction of the South African police services is really for all of us to see and in full view. And we must understand that this dysfunction has been perpetuated for decades. It's only now that it's being live streamed to us, so we can be horrified by it. And the Mafole family has a difficult prospect of reality to confront, and that's to say, well, it's unlikely that this case will ever be solved.
So they're going to have to make peace, probably, with the fact that they're going to have to celebrate their son's life without the prospect of accountability.
Well, that's exactly what's happened, unfortunately, with the Ekurhuleni family. You've had hitmen who've been arrested, as is the case with Mr. Mafole.
Murray family.
The Murray family, no arrests have been made. I mean, we can throw out all these names of these targeted assassinations, but they're becoming all too common. Common to the point where when we're out filming for this story, we run into other victims. So the problem can't be understated, but the solution is harder to reach.
Yeah.
And the horror show that we're seeing at Midlanga provides us with the first opportunity for tangible reforms. However, as we saw with the high-level panel on intelligence and the Zondo Commission, the recommendations of that commission will not be binding. And if there's a lack of political will to actually change the police, how they work, rid the ranks of corruption, make it an actual functional organization of 180,000 human beings. That will solve our crime problem, which then solves the investment problem, which then solves the unemployment problem. This is it's a center pivot of our country's issues. And finally, as distressing as watching the commission is, we have a hope that something might be done.
Jeff, Sikonathi, thank you so much for your time. And to our viewers and readers, thank you so much for your support of News 24. Without your support, the investigations team at News 24 would not be able to do what they do on a daily basis. Follow News 24 for further revelations around the murder of Paul Mafole, as well as all the other investigations that we are busy with. Thank you very much.